So we're just over a week left of this transfer window. We've got a lot of rumours to go over in today's video, guys. A lot going on around the league at the moment. I feel like over the next few days could be when this transfer window really does get into full swing. When a couple of clubs start to panic a little bit, the sides who haven't done so much business so far, I think a lot could come out over the next few days. If you've seen any rumours that we don't mention in today's video, make sure to get them in the comments down below. Also, I must say my Championship Week 1 score prediction video will be coming out tomorrow. Really looking forward to bringing that one out. We've got some good games going on the opening weekend. But without any further ado, let's get into talking about some of the completed deals which we've gone through lately. Starting it out with Nottingham Forest, they completed the loan signing of Rafa Mir coming over from Wolves for the season. He's only played a handful of games in England so far, despite signing for Wolves when they were in the Championship in the January transfer window. He's not really played all too much football in England. He spent last season out on loan in Spain where he scored 7 goals in the Spanish second division. At 22, he's still believed to be someone with quite a bit of potential going forward and could be a decent acquisition for Forest for the season. They were a little bit light going forward, and if he can chip in with some goals here and there, that might not be a bad addition for them for this season. And Millwall completed the loan signing of Bielikowski coming over from Ipswich for the season. Now this has been the whole transfer saga. They were linked with Bielikowski a few weeks ago, but a deal never quite materialised. They have now completed the loan signing for the season. A really bizarre keeper. Last season for Ipswich really didn't have a great time. He was dropped. He was in and out of the squad throughout that season. But prior to that relegation season with Ipswich, he was a fantastic goalkeeper in the Championship. You know, one of the more underrated goalkeepers over the past few years. He's 32 years old now, and although a few mistakes were creeping into his game last year, if he can rekindle his form of a couple of years ago, Millwall got a good keeper there, very commanding, good in the box. And Millwall also completed the signing of defender Jason McCarthy coming over from Wickham. Can either play at right back or centre back, so he can come in and fill a couple of gaps. Luton have signed former Derby midfielder Jacob Butterfield on a free transfer. Butterfield's had a really weird career so far. He was an absolutely brilliant player while he was at Huddersfield. Since making his move to Derby though, for whatever reason, it never really worked out for him there. I think the move to Luton could end up being a good one for his career, really. Obviously, Luton have been targeting players with a bit of Championship experience to add to that core group of players that got them promoted from League One last season. Cardiff completed the signing of German striker Robert Glatzel coming over from the Bundesliga second division. An interesting striker, this one. They've signed him for a fee of around about £5.5 million, so not necessarily a cheap deal, but he looks to be the like-for-like replacement for Kenneth Zohore, who was sold to West Brom. The striker stands at 6'4", so he's probably going to be utilised as a hold-up player. Last season, he scored 13 league goals and actually scored a hat-trick against Bayern Munich in the Cup. That was probably his highlight from last season, and looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Cardiff were lacking a little bit of firepower. I said in my prediction video for the Championship that that was probably the weakest area in this Cardiff squad at the moment, and if he can address that sort of lack of goals, then Cardiff could have a decent player on their hands there and could definitely push up the league this season. And Cardiff also completed the signing of winger Gavin White coming over from Oxford United. He scored 9 goals last season, adds a lot more pace, and is quite a direct player, likes to run at players. From a couple of highlight reels that I've seen of the player, I really like the look of him actually. And after these couple of signings, I think that Cardiff are looking much stronger going forward. Birmingham have been fairly busy in the transfer window lately. They've completed the signing of 2 Spanish midfielders. Augustin Medina and Ivan Guzman have both joined on 2-year contracts, with Guzman being loaned straight out. The Guzman one seems a little bit strange to me. He's 28 years old. They've signed him and loaned him immediately out. I'm not sure if he's ever even going to play for Birmingham, to be honest. And Birmingham have also signed Real Madrid goalkeeper Mohamed Ramos. The 19-year-old comes over on a season-long loan, with Birmingham having the option to make it permanent at the end of the season. I've spoken a bit lately about Birmingham's current goalkeeper situation with Camp and Stockdale. They're bringing this guy in from Real Madrid. Can't say I know all too much about him. He's only 19. I really can't decide how I think Birmingham are going to do this season, because they brought in they brought in a lot of players so far, which I'm not sure how they're going to do. And Blackburn have signed Man City defender Tosin Adarabioyo on a season-long loan. Spent last season out on loan at West Brom, where he didn't really set the world alight. I don't think he particularly had the best of loan spell there, but maybe a change of environments under a new manager now in a new system, he might actually go on to do a little bit better. He's only 21, so he should only go on to improve, and with Blackburn looking really light in defence actually, this was a position that needed to be strengthened. But those were some of the completed deals which we've gone through in the past couple of days. Now without any further ado, let's hop into some transfer rumours. So we'll start out with the big news that Ollie McBurnie is on his way to the Premier League, leaving Swansea for Sheffield United for a fee of 17 million, rising to 20. Now McBurnie's no doubt going to be a loss for Swansea. You know, he scored 24 goals in all competitions for them last season. However, I think they're getting a fair price for him, you know, for what Sheffield United are paying. In these circumstances as well, you can't really stand in a player's way if they want to be going on and playing Premier League football. So I feel like although he will be a loss to that side, there's not really much they could have done in that situation. What's most important now is what Swansea actually do for the remainder of this transfer window and how they look to set up without McBurnie. I'm guessing they're now going to look to want to keep BOYE Baston. I'm not going to lie, I had completely forgotten he was even a Swansea player. I was looking at their squad the other day and I thought he'd left the club, but he's had 2 loan spells out to La Liga in the previous 2 seasons. He's now back at the club though and had pre-season there, and I mean, they'll probably look to keep hold of him and maybe he could be their talisman going forward this season. We've not really seen all too much of him in English football so far, and maybe he could be their man for the Championship. Even with Baston still there though, I'd still expect them to bring in another striker, maybe someone on loan later into the window. And it'll be interesting to see how this actually affects Swansea's squad, because I still do think they've got a good group of players in there, but the loss of McBurnie's goals, if they don't quite replace that in the squad, they may find it a little bit tough going forward. Nottingham Forest appear to be closing in on defensive midfielder Samba Sow, the Mali international. Really intrigued by this deal. Midfield's been a position where Forest have already looked to strengthen in this transfer window so far, bringing in players like Semedo and Silva. Stands at 6'1", so it gives them a bit more height in there. He's currently playing his football in Russia for Dynamo Moscow, and before that he's played his football in Turkey and previously in France as well. With Nottingham Forest this year, it really could go one of 2 ways. They brought in a lot of quite unknown talents for English football so far, but players with quite a bit of pedigree. I'm really excited to see if it all gels for them this season or not, because with Forest as well, they're another one of those clubs where it's never boring. And Derby have been quite prevalent in the transfer rumours lately. First of all, being linked with Arsenal youngster Krystian Bielik, who spent last season out on loan in League One at Charlton, where he really went on to impress. At the moment, the weakest area in that Derby squad probably is their back line. I see them conceding a few goals with the current setup they've got there, but they're obviously targeting that and looking to bring some more players in between now and the end of the window. Arsenal are said to value the player at around about £10 million. There have been other Championship clubs interested, with the likes of Brentford, Middlesbrough and West Brom also mentioned, but it looks like Derby are the closest to agreeing something. If they got that deal done, I would be very impressed. I think he's an absolutely fantastic player, more than capable of stepping up to the Championship. And Derby are also being strongly linked with a move for Brighton defender Matt Clarke, who was last season playing his football for Portsmouth in League One. Once again, another very good young defender, only 22 years old. Last season, Derby really utilised the loan market, and if they get in a player like Clarke for this season, I think that will be another good addition for them. In my prediction video when I was talking about Derby, I saw a couple of gaps in their squad and I was thinking I'm not sure if they'll quite be able to compete for the top 6 this season, but if they do get all these deals over the line, that squad's looking more than good enough to make the top 6 again. And Derby are also being strongly linked with a move for PSV midfielder Bart RAMSELAAR. He's previously worked under Koku from his time at PSV. They obviously got a good relationship between them. I think another technical midfielder would be useful, especially with the football that Koku's probably looking to play at Derby this season. And if they do manage to get all 3 of those deals over the line, Derby are looking quite strong going into this season. I must say, I'm really impressed if they get all that business done. West Brom are still on the hunt for some more forward options. They're still being linked to Brazilian winger Matheus Pereira. Really impressed if they get this one done. They're trying to get a loan deal sorted out with Sporting at the moment. The player spent last season out on loan in the Bundesliga. In my prediction video, I was backing West Brom for the top 2. The only real positions they're lacking at the moment is a bit more creativity out wide and another striker. This would be a really good start to the end of their transfer business though, if they did get a deal like this over the line. Although one player who has been linked away from the club has been winger Matt Phillips. I think West Brom should do everything they can to keep hold of him. I liked the look of him last season. Played quite a bit of his football at right wing back, but still popped up with 5 goals and 7 assists. The club said to be interested in the Premier League are Aston Villa, Brighton and Sheffield United. It really would all depend on if they were to replace him with the suitable quality or not for the remainder of the window. Middlesbrough have been linked with Torino, Argentinian forward Lucas Boye. He spent last season out on loan at AEK Athens in the Greek league, where he popped up with 6 goals. Not got the most prolific goal scoring record over his career so far. The 23-year-old, in 159 appearances, he's popped up with 14 goals, so not exactly prolific, but he seems to be a bit more of a technical striker, someone who gets involved in the build-up play, good on the ball, can also play out wide as well. It's one worth keeping your eye on. I can't say I know all too much about the player, but he's had spells in Greece, Italy and Spain as well, so a decent pedigree for the clubs he's played for, one to keep your eye on. Wigan Athletic have had a loan bid rejected for Preston midfielder Daniel Johnson. I want to get some North End fans' opinions in the comments down below on what you make of DJ. There's been quite a lot said about him recently. For me personally, he is by far one of the most frustrating players to watch in the Championship, because we all know what level he can play at. You know, one week we can see him put in a 9 out of 10 performance, and the next week he just completely drops off from that. He plays as a deep line playmaker, and his performances can just be so hit and miss, although Alex Neil obviously sees something in him. Despite not having a great time last season, he still contributed 11 goals, scoring 6 times and bagging 5 assists as well, which for a deep line playmaker aren't really bad numbers to put up. It's an interesting one. One that I could see happening though is Preston potentially moving on left back Josh Earl out on loan for this season, with Tranmere and Bolton both said to be interested in the left back. Didn't really have the best of seasons last time. I thought he was, you know, at fault for a couple of goals last season, and I think a loan spell out could actually do the world of good for him. You know, we all saw what happened to Ben Davies after his loan spell at Fleetwood. He came back and was completely transformed as a player, and I think that a full season of first team football will do him good. You know, he's not really going to improve sat on the bench looking to play backup for Andy Hughes, so I myself would quite like to see this one happening, provided that we do bring in another left back as cover. And going back to Wigan, it's looking like they're going to be completing the loan spell for Dujon Sterling. Chelsea and Wigan have had a good record lately with loaning out right backs after how successful Reece James was there last season. It looks like the 19-year-old defender will be coming into Wigan this season, and they've had a fairly slow transfer window so far, so I think that over the next few days we could see a bit of activity from Wigan. And it's looking as if Bristol City defender Adam Webster could be on his way to the Premier League. Bristol City had the whole transfer saga going on with Aston Villa fighting back the offers they put in for him, but Brighton are said to have put in a bid of 20 million, rising to 25 million, and I mean, for that sort of money, can Bristol City afford to really turn that down? Webster's a fantastic defender, but that's a big sum for a Championship defender. I can't see Bristol City being the type of club, though, to let Webster go and not have someone in mind as a replacement to come in immediately after that. Bristol City, by the way, over the past few years they've done some phenomenal business with selling players and the fees they actually get for them. They seem to be the masters of it. They're never a club to let someone go on the cheap, although Webster will be someone who does leave quite the void in their back line, and it will be a tough job to replace him. A possible incoming for Bristol City, though, it does look like Casey Palmer could be on his way back to City for the season. Swansea were another club who were interested. I really like the look of Casey Palmer in the Bristol City shirt for the second half of last season. I thought he had some very good moments for them, and if he can nail down a starting spot in that team, I think it'll be a good option for them going forward. Adds a lot more creativity. And we're seeing Reading being heavily linked with a move for Wolves forward Leo Bonatini. He spent the second half of last season out on loan at Nottingham Forest, where didn't really set the world alight. He's an interesting striker. I feel like at the moment he's perhaps just lacking a bit of confidence. When he first signed for Wolves in their promotion season for the first half of that, he was absolutely fantastic, and then something towards the end of it seemed to just fizzle out a little bit. He's a decent technical striker though, who does like to drop into midfield, get involved in the build-up play, and perhaps Gomez is the sort of manager to get the best out of him. Swansea have agreed a fee for Swedish winger Christopher Peterson. Really impressed by this deal. Only 500k, $500,000. It's a fairly low risk deal, and for the player's pedigree, I don't think this is a bad one. He's coming over from the Eredivisie, where he scored 12 goals last season. He grabbed 5 assists as well, and with the player only being 24, it's a low risk deal with the money they're paying, and he could turn out to be a bit of a gem for them. There have been some reports saying that Birmingham have had a £6 million bid put in for Inter Milan striker George Puskas. Not sure if I can see this one coming off. This rumour has been around for a little bit. I think we spoke about it a couple episodes ago. I'm not sure where all this money's come from with Birmingham lately, but they seem willing to spend it at the moment. And with them still in the market for another striker to replace Cherthams, it's worth keeping your eye on. Reportedly, Nottingham Forest have had the bid rejected for Aberdeen defender Scott McKenna, as they still look to strengthen their back line for the rest of the window. Said to be quite highly rated at only 22 years old, definitely worth keeping your eye on. Barnsley are looking to target Leeds defender Tom Pearce to come in and improve their back line. They've had a really busy summer so far, and they're still looking to do deals going into the last week of the window. QPR have reportedly had another bid rejected for Ipswich Town playmaker Alan Judge, this one being around about 600k. It'll be interesting to see how much further QPR are willing to go with this one. Warburton obviously wants the player. Stoke are said to be targeting Newcastle defender Kieran Clarke as a potential replacement for Ryan Shawcross this season after the injury he picked up against Leicester in pre-season. And Brentford look all but set to complete a deal for Ecuadorian footballer Joel Valencia. Can either play as a winger or as an attacking midfielder, potentially replacing some of the creativity they've lost in midfield by losing a player like Romain Sawyers. I've seen different price tags going around for what Brentford might be paying for this one, up to about 1.8 million. With Brentford's track record over the past few years of picking up gems, I wouldn't put it past them to find another one in this guy. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for this video, and there are some of the latest rumours currently going around the league. So if you've seen any others that we didn't mention in today's video, make sure to get them in the comments down below. But apart from that, that will now wrap it up. So if you did go in to enjoy, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you subscribe for some regular Championship content. Like I said at the start, my week 1 score predictions will be coming out tomorrow, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.